All right, so today we are going to talk about the Jefferson's presidency as our third president of the United States. So, following Adams' administration, Thomas Jefferson is elected overwhelmingly as our third president and begins a very successful presidency that really does change America. Prior to becoming president, he was known for a few different things. Some of them are as a writer of the Declaration of Independence, as we said before. That's always going to be a key thing. He was actually governor of Virginia. He was an ambassador to France during the American Revolution, and he was the first Secretary of State. Also, he started the University of Virginia. He wrote the Virginia laws on religious toleration. So he was a very well known, very well respected person. Now, there's two major events that we're going to have in our notes to talk about. The first one takes place right when he starts becoming president. It is the court case of Marbury versus Madison. This is the first Supreme Court case of consequence and establishes the principle of judicial review. So if you really just remember a couple of things, if you can remember Marbury versus Madison, first Supreme Court case, judicial review, that'll be very helpful for everything we're going through. Now, what's going to happen with with Marbury versus Madison is Adams' final night as president, he starts making these midnight appointments because at 12:01 a.m. he's no longer president. So anything that happens prior to midnight, he still gets to do. So he's going to put a lot of Federalists in power in different positions to try to hold some power, or give his political party power versus giving it to other people. So one of the people, William Marbury, is signed Justice of the Peace in D.C. Now, what's going to happen is that paperwork is passed and is technically legal paperwork, and James Madison, the new Secretary of State, is supposed to assign that paperwork and deliver it to people. What's going to happen is he's going to refuse to do so. He's going to say no. Jefferson's going to tell him not to do it, and they're going to hold off on passing any of that information out. So Marbury is actually going to sue Madison. Now, in a court case when that happens, it would start off in lower courts and work its way up to the Supreme Court. However, this is the first time we really utilize the Supreme Court, and so Marbury takes it directly to the Supreme Court. And our first Supreme Court Justice, John Marshall, is going to refuse the entire case. He's saying that the Supreme Court is just for very important, extremely important cases that have to affect to the Constitution. And it's going to set up this principle as judicial review, where they're going to take in consideration all the steps that have happened with the court case and attribute it that way. The other big thing that we had was Louisiana Purchase, which happened in 1803. So if you can remember Louisiana Purchase, 1803, and that it doubled the size of the United States overnight. Those are our key points of information for this. France is going to be at war with England and most of the rest of Europe. They're still causing a lot of problems. And what's going to happen is they're going to go through and sell this land to America for pretty cheap. He paid $15 million for the land, which doubled the size of America. So it's a lot of land for a very little price. And basically Jefferson's going to improve it without going through Congress. That's a big no-no and would cause a lot of problems today. But he said he had rights under the Constitution to be able to do it. And since we got so much land for such a cheap price, not a whole lot of people argued with him. During this time, he's going to send Lewis and Clark out to explore this territory. He's going to send them out to map it, identify Native American groups, and look for that Northwest Passage. Along the way, they start having a lot of problems, and they're going to get lost and have problems with Native American groups, and they're going to talk to a lady named Sacagawea, who's about 15 years old, and helps guide them the rest of the way. Now, the last thing that we have are just some other important events that happened to him. He established the Embargo Act of 1807, which banned trade between America and France and England, basically so we don't get caught up in their fighting. It's going to create a depression, and it's going to cause a lot of economic issues. Another issue we had is the Barbary Wars. So in between Spain and Africa, there's this little bitty pass. And the Barbary pirates are the ones that control it. And these are what are known as the countries in North Africa, like Tunisia and Egypt, just Algiers, these small little countries that you really don't talk much about. And they were going to try to force the Americans into submission and start charging them to come through that way. Ends up happening is we end up going over there and destroying those armies, and it stops a lot of that problem. But these are the key things that we have for Thomas Jefferson.